Shiori. So today I'll be talking about how to get above 1500 on the SAT, because I'm sure a lot of your juniors are really anxious about the upcoming one in March and want to know how to study in this month. So I personally took the SAT twice. I took it once in September of my junior year, where I got a 1500, and then I also took it again in December, where I got a 1570. So in reality, I actually didn't study between September and the December SATs. I actually only studied 1 month in July, which is why I am saying like you can actually get there in a month. So before I begin, like my advice for juniors who are studying for the SAT currently, I'm going to talk about some few advice tips for freshmen and sophomores who have yet to take the SAT. So first of all, I think reading is really important. Read a lot in your free time, read as much as you can, books, articles, basically anything you want, because for part of the SAT, there's like the reading section, and there's also the writing section where you have to read a lot, and getting used to reading those paragraphs and being okay with reading a lot in a short amount of time, it's going to be a really useful skill. So make sure to read a lot, and then also make sure to pay attention in your classes, especially math and English, because basically the SAT isn't really anything new that is unlearned in school. So by paying attention and doing well in your classes, you'll know what to do on the SAT. Now I'm going to talk about the 3 books that I actually used for the studying for the SAT. So I didn't use any tutors or anything because those are really expensive, and I thought I could do it with a tutor, and so basically I self-studied. So the 3 books I used were this book, the official SAT study guide. Basically, this book is it's sold by the College Board, so they have I think 8 to 10 practice exams in there, and which are actually made by the College Board, and there's also some review materials for all the 3 subjects. And that book really helped me a lot, for diagnostic tests and taking tests, to learn how to take the test and, just getting through. And then the second book I used was, the SAT grammar, the Erica Meltzer book. So, this is because I realized that I struggled a lot with grammar when I came to do the diagnostic test. So I realized that I really need to work on grammar, so I used this book. But there's also a reading version, and there might be a math version, I believe. So if you do feel like you need work on those areas, then definitely get the Erica Meltzer book for this one. And it has a lot of drills and a lot of foundational knowledge for you to get there, so it's not just review, which is really helpful. And then the last book, I can't really find it, but it's the SAT Black book, and that book has a lot of cheat sheets and strategies to get to help you for the SAT. And I usually read that the last day before the test, or 2 days before the test, because it'd have these mini strategies to help you think and get through your test faster. But also it has a lot of foundational review knowledge on math and grammar, so that might help you a lot as well. About 30 minutes to an hour a day, which is actually not a lot compared to the people who study 5 hours a day, which I think is unnecessary. And if you can focus and make your study plans productive and effective, you really don't need to study that much. So what I did usually was set a specific time in the day where you'd study, whether it's after school or 7 o'clock or whatever, and make sure you set a timer that and so that you actually focus for that time. And honestly, that's not really a lot when you think about the amount of time we're scrolling through social media and stuff. So in terms of setting a study plan, what I did was I first took a diagnostic test, which is basically any test on the official SAT book, and then see how you do. So obviously if you do really well on the diagnostic, you don't really need to study anymore. So I basically looked over my diagnostic test and graded it, and then seeing which questions I was getting wrong and what I was struggling with, whether it was math, reading, or writing. And also, I didn't look just at the questions that I missed, but also the questions that I guessed and somehow got right, or the questions that I was taking way too long on, even though I shouldn't really need to. And and then I looked at specific question types, and then like why my answers were wrong. For those questions, like how I got it wrong, and then like what I could have done to get it right. And this advice I'm giving isn't just for the diagnostic test, but it goes for every other practice test that you take. And so in terms of taking the practice tests, I only took the actual full-length 4-hour test once in my practice, because honestly, I'm a pretty lazy person. I didn't want to spend 4 hours of my day, and it's really unmotivating to know that you have to take 4 hours in your day taking the test. And if that if that unmotivation will literally not make me take the test. So in order to actually make sure that I practice, I only take a section a day, and that really helped me finish taking the test. So I'd recommend just taking the reading section on one day and the writing section on one day, because honestly, you don't really need that 4 hours, because if you can focus for an hour, you'll most likely be able to focus for 4 hours, especially if there's breaks in between. And also for people who are aiming for 800 on the math section, when you're grading your test, don't get mad if you get one question wrong, because most likely one question wrong isn't going to change your score, because the SAT is scaled that way. Okay. So now that you took the diagnostic test and you know which questions you're missing and what section particularly, or 2 sections you were missing wrong, you can get your study book. So for me, I had to get the SAT grammar book. You could get the SAT reading book, whatever. And so in terms of how to use the books, I split it up into so I think there's 18 chapters in the grammar book, but I split it up into maybe 12. Yeah, it's 12 sections, so that I did a section each day. So in terms of how to use the books, I usually just read whatever that was in the content, and then highlighted the parts I didn't know. And if I knew it was new information to me, I usually took note of that on a separate Google document, and that became a cheat sheet. So maybe if a week before the test, I can just look at it and try to memorize the things on the sheet, which is a lot easier than trying to go through a whole entire book. And other tips I have are maybe being strict with the timing. So when you are taking the practice test, make sure that if it says 25 minutes, to only take 25 minutes, because otherwise it's not really accurate. Your score isn't really accurate. And then also a tip that I don't really hear very often is to make sure to only actually do your diagnostic or practice test with the official College Board tests. You can do your practice problems with other Princeton Review, whatever tests, but ultimately when it comes down to calculating your score, I think it's most accurate taking the actual official College Board tests, which have the exact level that the SATs actually are, because I find that some other study books may actually be easier, and your score might be a little bit different. And then also the last tip, the most important one, is to make sure to take big breaks and rest a lot as well, because you can burn out really quickly, and you don't want that to happen. So as you can see here, this is a sample study plan that I made for the month of February, which is the upcoming month. And this is not the exact study plan that I used, but it's something similar to what I used. And as you can see here, I never really took the whole entire 4-hour test much. So I split it up into sections. So you can see here I took the math 1, math 2, reading, writing, and then I spent a day grading, and then setting a plan to see how I can move forward. And then I focused on grammar mainly, so I would split the grammar book, the Erica Meltzer grammar book, into I think 10 sections, because they're about 20 chapters, so I wanted to make sure to do 2 chapters a day. And then I also brushed up on some math and reading, and I'll mention some resources for these topics later. And then so I took a practice test, or spent a few days taking a practice test every few days to make sure that I was actually improving, and to see what I need to work on further. And then I did take one full-length practice test at one point, because I wanted to make sure I could actually sit down for 4 hours and take a test. And then the day before I was going to take the test, or a few days before taking the test, I would review my cheat sheet, which I mentioned before is where you put all the things that you learned onto the sheet. And then I also went over missed questions, or things that I was still struggling with in the SAT. And I will definitely attach the study plan below in links.
And then I just mentioned that I was going to mention some resources. So there's the math resources that I have here, and then the grammar resources and reading resources. Yeah, so the grammar book had 19 chapters actually, but yeah. And then I think one really good resource is actually on the College Board website. So if you search up like SAT Math College Board, it will like come up, and there's like a lot of practice questions that are obviously like College Board created, and you can practice online with those.
About motivation and what helps you study. So I think one of the things is like awarding yourself and rewarding yourself for what you do. So say you get like your whole entire practice test done, or say you do like 10 chapters of drills or something, then you like give yourself your favorite food or whatever. And also another motivation for me was not wanting to take it again, because I did not want to like have to go through that process where I was nervous for a week, or have to wake up early on Saturday and go take the SAT. So not wanting to study again and take it again is also a good motivation. So I think the biggest thing here is make sure to actually sleep a lot, because honestly, like I told you that I took the SAT in September with a 1500 and then improved my score by 70 points in December, and honestly did not study between those times, but I think the difference was the amount of sleep I got and like how much energy I had, because I remember the first test I was kind of like falling asleep during the test, and I was like really tired, and that was because I was trying to cram the day before. And especially because the SAT is mostly the stuff that you actually already know, like the more you like are mentally prepared for it, like the better you'll do. So in terms of that, you'd like to make sure you like prepare everything that you need, like a pencil, whatever, the SAT like sheet, whatever. Make sure to prepare all those things on the night before so that you don't get anxious on the day of. And yeah, make sure that your emotional health is there on the day of, so that you don't start crying during the test. Yeah.
So here is Mr. Red Panda, and he's just here to wish you good luck, because ultimately the SAT, while it is important, it is just a number, and especially because schools are going test optional, it impacts your college results even less. But anyways, good luck and have fun studying.